All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This episode is part of a health series where I invite experts from the health industry to come and talk about things that we should all be aware of, and most likely do ourselves. I believe that people treat their money just like they treat their health, and that our greatest asset is our health, both physically and mentally. I hope you get something out of it and share the episode with any friends or family that may benefit. Most people have heard of diabetes and know of diabetes as a condition, but very few actually realize that there are different types of diabetes, and very few people, including myself, really understand what diabetes is all about. Today, I've invited Isabella Magee, who is the ambassador for Diabetes Australia, to talk about this condition and hopefully educate all of us, including myself, more about the different types of diabetes and what diabetes actually is. Isabella, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. As we've even when I was talking to you the other day on the phone, even through our phone call, it became evident that I didn't understand diabetes properly. And I think you even made a comment that a lot of people understand that there are so many different misconceptions of diabetes, and that there are so many different ideas of what diabetes actually is.
Yeah.
Can we probably maybe start by if you can just give us a little bit of a background on yourself and how you came to become, the ambassador for Diabetes Australia?
Yeah. So I guess I was a journalist, and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2009. So I was 11 years old, and misconceptions and stuff like that were a big thing and still are a big thing. And I think for me personally, I was quite frustrated with that and having to deal with that. Not only did I have to deal with the chronic illness, but I had to deal with everyone else not understanding the chronic illness and mistaking it for other things. And it became quite a lot, and it is quite a lot. And for me, I guess becoming Diabetes Australia ambassador, my goal is to get rid of the stigma and educate people and bring knowledge and awareness around what the condition actually is and what it does involve, because it is quite confusing and it's quite a complex chronic illness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's becoming more common, isn't it? Like it's over the years, all probably more understood. More people are starting to realize that it's a thing.
Yeah.
And can I ask, what are the different types of diabetes? Because there's type 1, there's type 2. If you can just explain them and just the difference between them as well.
Yeah. So basically, diabetes in general. So diabetes is a chronic condition where there's too much glucose in the blood. So the body either can't make insulin, can't make enough insulin, or is not effectively using the insulin it does make. So over time, high glucose levels can seriously damage your body and result in long-term health complications like heart, kidney, eye, and foot damage. And there are multiple types of diabetes. The two main types most people hear about, like you mentioned, is type 1 and type 2. So I have type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune condition where the body's immune system destroys the beta cells in the pancreas, which produce insulin. So they don't know why that happens. However, they do believe environmental factors are thought to set off the process, and it's not linked to modifiable lifestyle factors, and there's no cure currently. With type 2 diabetes, the body becomes resistant to the normal effects of insulin and gradually loses the capacity to produce enough insulin in the pancreas. There are also other types. So gestational diabetes occurs during pregnancy. Type 3C diabetes develops when another disease causes damage to the pancreas, such as cystic fibrosis. And there's also pre-diabetes, which may be diagnosed before it progresses to type 2 diabetes.
Okay. So type 1, essentially, like we said, there is no cure, and there isn't, would I be right in saying there's not enough knowledge and not enough research has been done to actually identify, I guess, why it occurs, or the research hasn't identified it, I should say?
Yeah, I guess they don't really fully know the reason why it occurs yet. But there's a lot of research out there, and we are getting closer to finding out why. But You take one day at a time, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And then type 2 is the one that usually can be avoided. Would that be right?
The way I like to describe the two main types is that if you think of your pancreas as a machine, with type 2 diabetes, you usually have clogged the machine. So this is not always true, but you've usually clogged it with bad lifestyle habits. So smoking, eating a poor diet, not exercising. And you can sometimes undo this damage by reversing those lifestyle habits. So you can sort of repair the machine, if you will. But with type 1, your body attacks the machine and you can't repair it.
Okay, so you could literally be as healthy as anyone, and still have
Yep.
type 1 diabetes. Understand?
Oh yeah, yeah. I work out and I have a lot of friends who have it and they're very fit people and people get quite confused as to why we've got muscles and diabetes. So yeah,
Yes.
it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Because I mean, for me, whenever I've heard of diabetes or whenever, I guess when most people talk about it in a way, it's usually something like and this is very common. Like I'll have clients even say to me that, hey, my doctor said to me I need to lose 10 kilos or, it could be technically becoming a diabetic, or I need to do X, Y, and Z, because of these reasons. And you mentioned lifestyle, you mentioned food, diet. Are there any, like, I mean, is it usually one of those things as well that creeps up on someone, or is it usually something that's sort of maybe it's been there for a period of time due to bad diet or bad lifestyle, and then eventually it just sort of it presents symptoms essentially, and someone is then told by their doctor that they've got diabetes.
So in type 1 diabetes, symptoms are often sudden and they can be quite life-threatening. So it's usually diagnosed quite early on, so within days. In type 2 diabetes, many people have no symptoms at all, or other symptoms can become, they can go quite unnoticed and be seen as part of, getting older. So that's quite a big issue there. I guess some common symptoms in general are being more thirsty than usual, passing more urine, feeling tired and lethargic, always feeling hungry, having cuts that heal slowly or having skin infections, blurred vision, unexplained weight loss, and that's with type 1 and type 2. You can have a slow increase in weight gain, and that's just with type 2. Mood swings, headaches, feeling dizzy, and even leg cramps.
Okay, and also when it comes to again, just even with type 2 diabetes, like when I've spoken to, I've had a few clients that have been diagnosed with it, and I'll sort of get the phone call or the text saying, hey, just found out I've got this. And with me, what I've noticed is it's very common. Like a lot of people in a way will usually admit that they've neglected their lifestyle or they've neglected certain things.
Yeah.
And the diet hasn't been the best, or they haven't really been exercising, and it's a bit of a wake up call to them. Do you notice that? And I don't know if even just with what you do at the moment, like, do you notice that a lot of people sort of, they know what they need to do these days? But sometimes it takes something like this to actually scare them or to get them to start taking action.
I think you don't know what you've got until it's gone, right? And I never thought I would get diabetes. I didn't even know what it was at 11. And you don't understand how much work it is to act as your own vital organ until you're put into that situation where you have to. And I think one of the good things about most people who have type 2 diabetes, if you want to look at a silver lining, is they can, in some cases, reverse it and get rid of it and not need to become insulin dependent. And that would personally be a wake up call for me.
Yeah, and even just I guess the old saying of listening to the body, and seeing doctors. I had a client once. I was doing, like, we do a lot of life insurance, and I had a client. I was doing his insurance application, and he was like in his 60s, and this was years ago. And we're going through it, and he was just ticking no to every question. And I said to him, I said, "You're pretty healthy for a 60-year-old. Like, you like literally considering you haven't had no breaks, no injuries, no medication, anything." And you said to me, "Yeah, I just don't go to the doctor." I'm like, "Okay, great." So,
Oh my gosh.
so he probably so who knows what he has, but God knows what he has. But he just, he just didn't go to the doctor. So
Out of sight, out of mind.
literally,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think, yeah, like being aware and just monitoring these things is massive. And I like that you mentioned those things earlier, like to go to the doctor if you have these particular symptoms, or to mention it to the doctor, because some of those things you mentioned, a lot of us actually get, but we just ignore them as well. Like especially constant headaches, I think you mentioned, and just they may not seem like such a big deal, but I'm guessing going to a doctor, and usually I'm guessing it would be followed up with a blood test and a few
Yeah.
more tests from there. But they are things that probably shouldn't be ignored, especially if it's like type 1.
Yeah, I think with type 1, it's a lot more obvious. You can sort of tell, and it's very intense. So, like for me, I was drinking about 6 liters a day of liquid.
Wow.
And it was just going straight through me, like just clear because my body just wasn't even working. And I lost I lost a ridiculous amount of weight within a week. It was probably close to 10 kilos. Um, and I think the extremities of that you can really tell with type 1, but I think the issue is with type 2, they're not as obvious as that, and they don't always seem as intense or as, I guess, quote unquote, serious. But, I think people should be going to the doctor and checking, getting their blood glucose checked, making sure that their thyroid's good, everything like that, because it is a very serious condition and it does affect a whole ton of parts of your body.
Yeah, and just to confirm, type 1 diabetes, usually, my understanding is that it appears during childhood or adolescence. It can develop in adults, but usually it's in the early symptoms, in the early stages of life that usually it starts presenting itself. Would that be right?
Yeah, so it's known as juvenile diabetes, but I know people who have got it in their 30s and their 20s, and it's still type 1. So I don't think that you should, get to 18 and go, oh, I'm all good. Definitely, if you've got family history of it or you're getting those symptoms, you should seek medical attention.
And as well, just talking to the parents out there, what the symptoms you mentioned earlier, are they also the ones that parents, and obviously I acknowledge as well that you're not a doctor as well, by the way, but
Yeah,
just
no,
to put
not a
it out there,
doctor.
what are some of the things that parents should look out for as well, with their kids? Is it just the things that you mentioned, I guess, as well? And,
Yeah. So my mom is a nurse, and she actually recognized a lot of the symptoms in me and knew that something was wrong. But I think, just being really lethargic, losing a lot of weight, mood swings are a big one. Blurred vision. I thought I needed glasses when I actually didn't. So there was a buildup of glucose in my eyes, which subsided after I had better glucose control. But I thought that I needed glasses because I couldn't see properly, but it was actually just the glucose buildup in my eyes before I was diagnosed. So that's an interesting one to look out for. Always feeling really tired and just not having any energy. So just wanting to sleep 24/7. But yeah, they're the main things. But I think if you're in doubt, just go see a doctor.
yeah, of course. And again, just not to ignore symptoms, not to ignore something that's out of the ordinary. I think that's a general
Yeah.
health advice anyway. It's because again, something like I can tell you now, there'll be some parents listening to this thinking, should I get my kid checked? Because you don't know what you don't know. And your mum was a nurse, which, thankfully she was able to probably see certain things that other parents wouldn't see. But other parents may potentially ignore certain symptoms or be, they're just a kid, or they're just, they're moody because they're just moody, or whatever it may be. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.
Yeah. Rather safe than sorry. I think the worst thing you could do is go get them checked and they don't have anything. So nothing wrong with checking.
Yeah. And Isabella, can I just ask, like, for yourself, being diagnosed with it at age 11, and how old are you now? Sorry, if you don't mind me asking.
I'm 26.
26. So it's been 15 years now. And
oh, yeah, it has.
Can you sort of share what it's been like as well? Like, because dealing with any condition isn't easy, but something like this literally takes over or dictates your lifestyle in a way, or at least your eating habits, or just what you do day to day, or week to week, checking things and trying to monitor it. Just mentally, can I ask if those listening to this that probably do have type 1 diabetes or type 2 and mentally aren't coping with it, is there any advice that you can give there? Because I'm not going to pretend to know what it feels like. And I can just imagine you probably would have some weak moments, or moments where it is getting a bit too much.
Yeah. I say this all the time when I try to explain this to people. It is, if you have to act as your own vital organ. There's no clock off. You are 24/7 working, and your brain is constantly thinking, and there are a lot more stresses that you have to deal with. There are a lot more worries that you have to deal with than the average person, and it does at times become quite overwhelming. There's this thing that we have in the community we call diabetes burnout, because it's basically inevitable that you will get burnt out because it's a job that you can't clock off from. And if you do, you'll end up in hospital. And I don't think people understand, because it's an invisible illness as well, you don't see the full effects of it, but I don't think people fully understand, and God bless them that they don't, because lucky them, but how difficult it can be. When I was diagnosed, I had a fear of, the irony in this, but blood and needles. So for me, that sparked quite a big anxiety disorder. And I think even dealing with that is a lot. And then the constant, like, math isn't my strong suit, and having to add numbers together all the time. You're not making math for the fun of it. You're doing it for your health and for the sake of your life. And there's a lot of pressure on it. And there's a lot of pressure on you to learn all these things so quickly. So I guess in short, yes, there is quite a mental toll on it. And I would say to anyone who does have diabetes and is also struggling with those thoughts, that you're not alone. We all are finding it very difficult, and we do all have our down days. I think one thing that I have sort of realized is important during those times is to have a solid support network around. So having friends, family, even a pet, that you can turn to and lean on when you need that sort of extra support. Someone to go get your medications for you from the chemist, or help you, with your insulin pump change if you don't really want to do it, or, helping you with how many carbs are in something, just because it's a constant thought process.
Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful. And I feel like the key message I'm getting there is just to have support around you and to have people around you. And, like what you mentioned, there's support networks. There's obviously support someone can get if they are feeling anxious. And, especially when something like depression kicks in, because dealing with any illness or injury is hard, even if it's temporary. Like I've heard of situations, and I've got friends and family that have dealt with it, but, even just being sick for a few months, or 6 months can take its toll, let alone something which goes on for over a decade, if not more, or decades, I should say even. So it's big. And thank you for sharing that, because I feel that there's two parts to this, and there's two reasons I wanted to talk to you about this topic, about diabetes, as part of this health series. The first one was for those that don't understand what diabetes is, so that they have a bit of an idea, because I had an idea as to what the differences are of, as a financial advisor doing life insurance. These are just some of the questions we have to ask, but that was it. That was, it was very limited. And I wanted to really spread that knowledge. And as we were talking about it, even just you and me before today, it became obvious that I had misconceptions about it, and I had misunderstandings about the different types of diabetes. And the second reason I wanted to talk is those that maybe know someone that have been diagnosed with it recently, or have been diagnosed themselves, just to realize that there is a lot of support and help out there, and just to understand it a bit more. Because I think when you understand things, any medical condition, when you understand it, it is easier to deal with. And when you understand it as well, it's easier to help others as well, or those that that are going through it. Because
100%, yeah. And I don't blame anyone as well. You said that you didn't really understand the condition, but I don't blame anyone who doesn't. I think it's more just getting that knowledge and awareness out there. And it is such a complex illness, and there are so many different parts of it and so many different types, that it is quite overwhelming to learn. And I don't blame anyone who doesn't. If you don't live it, you don't know it.
Yeah, agreed. And obviously something like this will take a toll on many things in your life. Yeah, like, not your life in particular, but in general, it could relationships, work, study, everything. So it's, I guess you really have to be organized as well, don't you? Like, even from a as far as you mentioned having someone to help you pick up medication from the pharmacy, lifestyle, knowing when are your good times in the day. I'm guessing sometimes mornings are probably better than afternoons or vice versa.
I think you can't look at it as, taking a toll or having a negative impact on your life, because that's when your mind starts to get quite, why me? Oh, this is, so I think I sort of look at it as just something that you have to adjust to for your daily activities or whatever you need to adjust it to. So relationships, yeah, it has an impact on it, but I'm not going to say it has like a toll or a negative, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just part of who I am. But, and again, this is the other, I guess, hard part about it is that everyone is different. So it's not an illness that is one medication fix all or one type of medication fix all. So for example, for me, I'm great in the mornings. I'm great in the evenings. I sometimes have low blood sugars at 2 a.m. in the morning, and other people may find that they don't have that. So people, I guess, struggle with it at different times of the day. So there's not even like it's 3 o'clock. Everyone with diabetes out here is, not doing great. You can't put a time on it. You can't. And that's the other part of it as well. You can't really plan for a lot of things. You can expect, you can prepare, but you have no idea of what your body is really going to do. And that's the biggest part of it, I think, is that you're constantly in this guessing game and this back and forth of just trying to figure out what your body will do, but you have no idea. And then when it doesn't do what you expect it to, it's quite frustrating.
Yes, that's good insight, because again, for someone sitting on this side of the fence, it's, and unless I had someone close to me that had type 1 or type 2 diabetes that would explain all this to me, I wouldn't know. And I think this just is something, it's all of us, when we have friends, we have family, when you have anyone around us, work friends, anyone going through a bad day or rough time, we need to always just acknowledge that whether it's diabetes or something else, that we all have things going on in our lives mentally and physically. And it's important to just acknowledge that as well, and I wanted to also ask you, who would you say is most susceptible, to being diagnosed with diabetes?
Yeah. So with, type 2 diabetes, the exact genetic causes are unknown. However, some factors increase the risk of developing type 2. So some risk factors are age. So people over the age of 40 have a higher risk, and this risk increases as their age goes on. If you have a family history of diabetes or polycystic ovarian syndrome, if you carry excess weight, especially if this excess weight is around your middle, so your stomach area, being physically inactive, unhealthy eating habits, smoking, high blood pressure, and high levels of cholesterol or other fats in the blood are also things that you should look out for.
And while type 1 can't be avoided, how can type 2 be avoided or prevented, I should say?
Yeah, so people at risk of type 2 diabetes can delay and even prevent getting type 2 diabetes by maintaining a healthy weight, participating in regular physical activity, making healthy food choices. And on that as well, if you're unsure what a healthy food choice is, ask a professional, because I think there's a lot of stigma around what is good and bad foods, and that you should even label them good and bad is just beyond anyway. But I think that that's important, that if you're unsure of what healthy food choices are, that you seek a professional for that. Also, you can manage your blood pressure and cholesterol levels, and not smoking. Crazy, but not smoking helps.
Who would have thought not smoking?
No, I know.
Nice. That helps a lot. So really, it's just trying to live as much of a healthy lifestyle as you can.
And I think that's why people get so confused about the different types, because type 2 is very much lifestyle related usually, and type 1 isn't, there's a whole debate about why it's even called the same illness, really. But I think that is why people get so confused.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think when it comes to anything health related, again, it's that, but it's also just being aware and just educating yourself, because like what you said, things are always changing. Type 1, there's a lot of research being done into it to all over the world, to understand more about it and why it happens. And I think education is key. Talking to others is key, and talking to professionals, doctors, people that know what they're talking about, instead of just Googling things, because sometimes Googling things can lead you down the wrong path as well.
Google can be quite dangerous.
Yes. So if anybody wants to get in contact with yourself or to follow what you're doing and the amazing work that you're doing with Diabetes Australia, or they want to learn more about diabetes, what would you say would be the best way for them to do that?
You can follow me on Instagram at ISABELLAGMAGEE, or visit the Diabetes Australia website. They have a ton of helpful resources on there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Isabella, I like to finish off all our episodes with a dad joke.
Okay. I'm ready.
I hope you're ready. I didn't give you a heads up on this one, but did you hear that I'm actually reading a book at the moment about anti-gravity? It's impossible to put down.
I knew you were going to say that. I was going to answer it for you, but I was like, no, I'll let him have it. Well done.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Yeah. No, thank you again so much for your time, Isabella. It means a lot. And I will put the link to those resources that you mentioned in the description of this episode as well. And again, thank you for your time, and continue the amazing work that you do. Building awareness, doing everything that you do, I think is invaluable to those with diabetes and those that don't have it, that need to learn more about it.
Oh, thanks so much. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.